Egyptian myths versus history. How much is actually true? Ever wondered what's real and what's just legend when it comes to ancient Egypt? You know, that land of pharaohs, pyramids, and mummies? Well, buckle up because today we're diving into some of the most fascinating Egyptian myths and uncovering the truths behind them. Did the pharaohs really curse their tomb raiders? Were the pyramids built by slaves or aliens? And what's the actual story of Cleopatra? Let's separate fact from fiction in the most epic way possible. Grab your explorer's hat, and let's get started. The Curse of the Pharaohs. So, let's kick things off with a spooky one. The Curse of the Pharaohs. You've probably heard that anyone who disturbs a pharaoh's tomb is doomed to suffer a terrible fate. The most famous case? The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. After Howard Carter unearthed the tomb, a series of mysterious deaths occurred among those involved. Coincidence or curse? Turns out, most of the stories were sensationalized by the media of the time. While it's true that Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's financier, died shortly after from an infected mosquito bite, many others lived long lives. Howard Carter himself lived until 1939. Scientists suggest that bacteria or mold spores sealed in the tomb could have caused illnesses, but there's no solid evidence of a curse. Builders of the pyramids. Who built these colossal structures? There's a widespread belief that slaves, or even aliens, were the workforce behind these wonders. But what's the real deal? Archaeological evidence shows that the pyramids were built by paid laborers, not slaves. Excavations of worker villages near Giza revealed bones of workers with healed injuries, indicating they had medical care. They ate well, too. Lots of meat, which was a luxury back then. As for aliens, well, the ancient Egyptians were master engineers and mathematicians. The Sphinx's missing nose. Let's talk about the Great Sphinx of Giza and that missing nose. Legend has it that Napoleon's troops shot it off during target practice. But is that true? Historical records show that the Sphinx was already noseless before Napoleon's arrival in Egypt in 1798. Sketches from the 1700s depict the Sphinx without its nose. The likely culprit was a Sufi Muslim named Muhammad Sa'im al-Dar in the 14th century. According to some accounts, he defaced the Sphinx in outrage over local peasants making offerings to it. Cleopatra's heritage. Now, onto Cleopatra, one of history's most intriguing figures. Many think of her as an Egyptian queen of African descent, but let's delve into the facts. Cleopatra VII was actually of Macedonian Greek origin, part of the Ptolemaic dynasty that ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great. However, she was the first in her line to learn the Egyptian language and fully embrace Egyptian culture. She even styled herself as the goddess Isis. So, while she wasn't ethnically Egyptian, Cleopatra identified closely with Egypt and its people. Universal mummification. Mummies. They've become a symbol of ancient Egypt, but did every Egyptian get mummified? Let's unwrap this myth. Mummification was an elaborate and costly process, involving specialized priests and materials like natron and fine linens. It was typically reserved for pharaohs, nobility, and the very wealthy. Common folk couldn't afford such luxuries. Most Egyptians were buried in simple graves in the desert, where the hot, dry sand naturally preserved their bodies to some extent. Worship of animals. Ever heard that ancient Egyptians worshipped animals? Let's explore this idea. Animals in Egypt were revered, not worshipped as gods themselves. They were seen as physical manifestations or symbols of deities. For example, the cat was associated with Bastet, the goddess of home and fertility. These animals were sacred and often kept in temples or depicted in art, but the Egyptians understood the difference between the symbol and the divine. Hieroglyphs as magical symbols. Hieroglyphs. Those mysterious symbols carved into temple walls and tombs. There's a myth that they were magical codes or secret knowledge. Actually, hieroglyphs were the written language of ancient Egypt, used for religious texts, official inscriptions, and more. They combined logographic and alphabetic elements, making them complex but not magical. Thanks to the Rosetta Stone's discovery and scholars like Champollion, we now understand hieroglyphs were a functional script. The Book of the Dead. Let's flip through the pages of the so-called Book of the Dead. Many believe it was a single book of spells given to the deceased. But here's the scoop. The Book of the Dead was actually a collection of spells, prayers, and incantations personalized for each individual. These texts were meant to guide the deceased through the challenges of the afterlife. No two copies were the same, they were tailored to the needs and status of the person. The construction of obelisks. Obelisks, those towering stone pillars pointing to the sky. There's a legend that they were built using magical powers. Obelisks were carved from single pieces of granite using tools like dolerite hammerstones. The real challenge was transporting and erecting them. Egyptians likely used sledges, ropes, and manpower to move them. Raising them involved ramps and counterweights, a true engineering marvel. Inscriptions often bragged about the pharaoh's achievements in erecting obelisks. The death of King Tutankhamun. King Tutankhamun's death at 19 sparked many rumors of murder and intrigue. Some theories suggest he was assassinated due to political rivalries. Modern science offers a different story. CT scans and DNA tests indicate that Tutankhamun suffered from malaria and had a broken leg, which could have become infected. He also had congenital defects, likely due to inbreeding, a common practice among pharaohs to preserve royal bloodlines. The role of pharaohs as gods. Were pharaohs considered gods on earth? The answer is, sort of. Pharaohs were seen as divine intermediaries between the gods and the people. This divine status wasn't about being a god in the literal sense but served to legitimize their rule and maintain order. It reinforced their authority and connected the earthly realm with the divine. So, pharaohs were more god-kings than actual gods walking among mortals. The legend of the hidden labyrinth. Last but not least, the mysterious labyrinth. Ancient writers like Herodotus spoke of a massive underground maze with countless chambers near the Lake of Moeris. In modern times, archaeologists have identified a site at Hawara that could be the labyrinth. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed underground structures matching the descriptions. However, due to groundwater issues and funding, extensive excavation hasn't been possible. What an incredible journey through time we've had. From curses to construction techniques, we've unraveled myths and discovered the fascinating truths of ancient Egypt. These myths, while not always factual, enrich our understanding and keep the magic of history alive. They remind us to dig deeper and question what we think we know. Thanks for joining me on this adventure. If you enjoyed unraveling these mysteries, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more historical explorations. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What myths surprised you the most? Let's keep the conversation going.